You all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Keep the palms down. Good morning, everybody. Good to see you all. It's funny, one of the things that, many of you who are here have heard me talk about this enough, but, I'm not one big into kind of sharing ritual. It's a very personal experience, personal thing. It's something I do because it's important to me. But my first master, when we would bow, she taught me, and you probably can't see it, but your hands are down, and then they open up. And so what she said to me was, this is basically a reminder, metaphor of the lotus flower that opens. And there's the expression, we have it, actually it's in the main hall downstairs. It says, no mud, no lotus. And the idea is that you have mud. Mud is gross, unless you love mud. I just had to look at you with a smile right when I said that. I already know where this was going. Mud can be beautiful and wonderful and incredible. But for this metaphor, it's, let's work with me here. So mud can be gross, and out of the dirty mud blossoms beautiful lotus flower. And so often the idea is that out of the mind, which also sometimes is, let's just say, not so pure, can also blossom the beautiful mind. And so the metaphor of opening the hands was a reminder that the lotus flower opens, and also, and as we kind of would discuss this more, the idea is that it's your mind as well that is opening. And what does that actually mean, to have your mind open? Anyone in here think their views are right? A couple of you. It's good. Such an open-minded group we have here. Our minds are very open as long as everybody agrees with our view. My mind's open. I'm willing to hear what you have to say, as long as it's exactly what, I believe, then it's wonderful. And so, we have entered into, in case you missed it, the crazy, what I call holiday season. And so this is a time, all days are great to open your mind, but this is a time as well to open your mind to understand that every single human being in this world, every human being in this room has a completely different view of things than you do. And when you begin to open the mind and you begin to watch kind of the lotus flower as it comes out of the mud, you begin to recognize that everyone's views are beautiful because they're theirs. Doesn't make them right, just like your views aren't right. Doesn't make them good, just like all your views are not good. But they're their views. And so beginning to understand that each human being has their own views allows us to let go of some of our attachments that we hold on to so tightly. Because it is those attachments to views that you cling to that cause all of the suffering in your life. Anytime anyone says anything that harms you at all, it's because you have a view of what you wanted to hear. And that view was not met. And that's our entire life, is our attachment to views and our ability or inability to actually open up our minds and understand that each person has a right to their own views. And that takes a lot of practice, because there's a lot of views out there that we find pretty disgusting. And it's something that we can allow it to destroy us and defeat us and torture us, or we can try to listen and understand and begin to explore, why do people have the views that they have. So I think of the lotus flower and the purity of mind, and I also think of the mind just opening to embrace all sentient beings and all views. It makes life a lot simpler. Or you can try fighting everyone and everything your whole life, and that's always a lot of fun too. I'll leave that choice up to you, which it is your choice anyway. So with that, we'll start with the meditation practice. A couple things to tell you before we begin, especially for those who may be sitting for the first time. Nothing's going to happen to you. All right, you're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences, most likely. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? We're just going to sit and breathe. You won't think nothing. Often people think meditation is about thinking nothing, and that your mind's going to go blank. You'd end up sitting there telling yourself, think nothing, think nothing, think nothing, and that's kind of a waste of time. All right? Don't expect anything. If you sit there waiting for some grand expectations or deep realizations, you're probably going to leave extremely disappointed. So we're just going to sit and breathe. You'll hear sounds. Life is filled with sounds. The practice of meditation is not escaping from them, but learning to get quiet within all of them. All right? Posture. If you're on the cushions, often it helps. Sliding to the front third, pushing the stomach forward. Allows the back to straighten slightly. Shoulders are relaxed. Hands can be on the knees or in the lap. If you're on the benches or chairs, also trying to sit up straight. Relaxing the shoulders. If you need to move during meditation, simply move. Movement doesn't make you a bad meditator. It just means your leg hurts. I will guide us as we begin. Settle into a little bit of silence. We'll be done in about 6 hours. And starting with the eyes closed, if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. Start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, we'll settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Knowing throughout the practice, you'll hear sounds. These are not distractions, not disruptions. Simply what's happening around us as we sit. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Gently guide the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. Expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it, release that thought, return attention, focus to the breath. letting go of expectations, letting go of judgments from the practice. Just sitting, breathing. Where's your mind? Release that thought. Return to breath. Keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound, each thought, each physical sensation. Yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. And with the body still, resting, the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. No one else to be. everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move, holding attention on yourself. Most important with the practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And no matter how you feel now, it's quiet, calm, still, or a busy mind, racing mind. It has nothing to do with anything that was said. It's nothing to do with how we sit, the hands across the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being no different than anyone in this room who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means, very simply, for every one of us in this room, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's what we get every single day. The practice of meditation is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. So all we're working on is closing the gap to the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy. It's not necessarily fun. Meditation is not an escape, as often people think it is. It is direct perception into the present moment. Sometimes we love the present moment. Sometimes we don't like the present moment. But either way, the present moment is exactly that. No matter how much we fight it, resist it, try to change it, manipulate it, control it, correct it, there's just the present moment. Things as they are. And our struggles occur because very often we are not okay with things as they are. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, which is where we spend so much of our time, hoping they do this, hoping they do that, wishing they would do this, wishing they would do that. Once we work on our mind and our reaction to the world around us, life gets simpler. But it's a practice. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do. And that's it. Be mindful of your thoughts, of your words, and of your actions. Yet so many of us are so wrapped up in everybody else's thoughts and everybody else's words and everybody else's actions. The practice is like holding up a mirror and looking back at yourself. Sometimes that's pleasant. Sometimes that's unpleasant. And sometimes it's neutral. Depends on how your day's going. Or whether you like the shirt you're wearing. We tend to complicate things with Buddhist practice. 2,500 years of teachings and teachers and books and schools and countries and cultures, and enough to confuse you for the rest of your life. Which for me, I always stick to what I first learned, which was think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds. Or actually listen and pay attention to just about everything we were taught when we were 5 years old. And that will make you the greatest gosh darn Buddhist in the world. So I'd much rather prefer, as usual, to just open up to questions. Meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. I'd rather address what's on your mind and use that to ramble on into something. So just open up to questions. Yeah.
Could you explain the bardo a little bit?
Can I explain the what?
Bardo?
No, I cannot. The question was, can I explain the bardo? And the answer was, no, I cannot. I've never been there. I can't tell you what the bardo is. You know? You like pizza?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. On a Wednesday, do you like pizza? Well, let's say it's a day you like pizza, or a pizza that you like, right? And I ask you to describe what it tastes like to me, right? You could spend 45 minutes describing what it tastes like. Is that what it actually tastes like? Or is that just your description of it? It's just your description of it, right? The only way I'm gonna know what pizza tastes like is if I take a bite. That's it. The bardo, all these things that we tend to wrap our head around from an intellectual standpoint with Buddhism, in my personal experience as a practitioner, are kind of meaningless. Because to understand what the bardo is like would be, to me personally, missing the point of the practice. The bardo, for those who don't know what the bardo is, in Buddhist teachings, right? So let me back up a little bit. When the Buddha lived 2,500 years ago, I'll touch on this briefly, 500 years before Christ, in India, he was a prince, he was Hindu, that's what most of the people were there. And everybody, for the most part, believed in this thing called rebirth or reincarnation. It was just commonplace, right? It wasn't some weird thing. It was what most people believed in. If you walked up to somebody on the streets back then and said, hey, you got one life and then you're going to heaven or hell, they would have thought you were kind of crazy. Fast forward 2,500 years, you go up to people today and say, you know what, you're going to be reborn. And you're like, what? You're nuts. You know? So it's a very different time now than it was when the Buddha was teaching, right? The Bardo, as it's taught in Buddhism, different schools teach it differently, but the Bardo is the place, the time, the space, whatever words you want to attempt to put to it that describe the moment between rebirth or reincarnation. Tibetan Buddhist teachings, very specific, Tibetan Book of the Dead, they talk about there's a 49-day period, that at some point during those 49 days, when the physical body dies, which it will, in case you haven't figured that out yet, right? Our physical body will die. And in Buddhism, they call it the alaya vijnana. Again, I'm giving you all the technical terms, still sticking by what I said initially. But it's called alaya vijnana, storehouse consciousness. And the Buddha said that this consciousness will continue on once the physical body is gone. And this consciousness will leave the body, and at some point over the next 49 days, will be reborn into a physical form. Sperm, egg, boom, physical form, consciousness, boom, all three come together, and you have the beginning again, or the end again, depending upon how you look at it, right? So the Bardo is that stage in between there. I have no idea what that's like. You know, I truly believe as a practitioner, the most important thing, even when people bring up questions about death and things like that, the practice is right now, when you are alive, right? So let's just say all that Buddhist stuff is nonsense and crazy, and those are all weirdos who think you're going to be reborn into something. Let's just say we're filled with a room of people who believe in going to heaven or hell, right? For the most part, what determines whether you go to heaven or hell? Your actions. That, as a Buddhist, is my understanding of what the Buddha wanted us to look at. What are our actions? You know, and I'm just using your question to turn it into something completely else for everybody else. You know, this isn't even directed towards you anymore. I tend to do that a lot, but it's really just about understanding what are my actions right now. And that way, if there's a heaven and I want to get into heaven, then I should do good stuff. If there's a hell and I don't want to go to hell, then I should do good stuff. If there's a rebirth or reincarnation and I want to have a positive rebirth, then I should do good stuff. So all across the board, your karma, what you think, what you say, and what you do, is the practice. You know? So that's my response to the Bardo. But Tibetan Buddhism, study it if it's of interest to you. You know, you could read endless books on it. Yeah. Yes, in the back.
Are there any techniques for sitting and meditating in peace when your physical pain is kind of louder than your voice, louder than the breath?
Yes. That's the good answer. If I said no, that would have sucked. You know, I'd be careful there. Yes, there are techniques. You know, there's techniques for everything. The question is, can we do them? Is the real question. So I'll give you some things to ponder, which won't necessarily make it any easier, but hopefully it'll give you hope, right? Are you asking the question for yourself?
Yes.
Okay. Lots of people come to meditation, Buddhist practice with physical pain. A lot of people I know in this room deal with chronic pain, and it's not fun, all right? So I heard a great teaching years ago that said physical pain can be one of the greatest points of practice for meditation. Now let's just say the average person sitting in meditation. Show of hands, how many of your minds wander to something completely other than your breath during this meditation? Every single hand in this room should be up, or you're a complete liar. Right? So our minds wander to whatever, you know, to what I had for breakfast, to what I'm going to have for lunch, to what happened when I was 7 years old, to, you know, who knows where our mind goes, right? Physical pain is so present. We don't like it. We don't want it necessarily. We think it's ruining our meditation, potentially, right? I'm just kind of throwing things out there. But the reality is, all meditation is a concentration and focus on the present moment. Physical pain is about as present as you're going to get with anything. Breathing in, I feel pain in my knee. Breathing out, I feel pain in my knee. Breathing in, I feel pain in my knee. Breathing out, I feel pain in my knee. You could do that for 20 minutes, and it'll be a beautiful meditation practice. It's awareness of what is happening in the present moment. The challenge is, and you use the word peaceful, all the meditation in the world is not going to fix your physical pain. But how are you going to embrace it, accept it, and learn to be with it? The peace or lack of peace doesn't come from the physical pain or lack of physical pain. It comes from your relationship to the physical pain, right? The Buddha taught it's called the second arrow, right? That often we have the physical pain. That's our first arrow. Pain, not good. Second arrow is, now I'm angry because I have pain. Now I'm sad because I'm angry because I have pain. Now I'm depressed because I'm sad because I'm angry because I have physical pain. And then, of course, there is no peace to be found in the sadness and the anger and the depression and the physical pain. Now it all just sucks. As opposed to just recognizing this is pain. One of the names of the Buddha is called Tathagata, and it means suchness. Things as they are. And the entire basis for our suffering, the Buddha called this dukkha, is because we resist things as they are. Whether it's physical pain, whether it's the temperature, whether it's, what somebody says to us, whether it's the way we like how we look in a pair of shoes, whether it's the house or the car, the friends, the relationships, the money or jobs, we are so resistant to so many things in our lives. And I believe what I've learned from the Buddhist teachings is that the peace that you ask about and that many people come to this practice seeking isn't in getting or not getting anything. It's learning to be okay with things as they are. So, does that make sense? And potentially, again, clearly I'm no doctor and I don't give medical advice on this, but potentially, and I've heard this over the years, that often, and even though I said earlier and I believe this, that meditation isn't going to fix physical pain. Often the heart and mind opening and softening to the physical pain potentially may make the physical pain a little more bearable because we're not mentally and emotionally fighting it. Potentially. At the same time, focusing on it could make it worse. So I want to throw that out there as well. But whether you focus on it or don't focus on it, it's still there. How do we respond to it emotionally, mentally? So, yeah. I don't know if that's a tip or trick, but those are some thoughts on it. Yeah.
I have a follow-up question to that. So when dealing with emotional pain.
Focus on the knee pain. Sorry.
Yeah, and not even just within the period of meditation, but I guess I'm talking about specifically just a specific instance with another person where, in this case, hateful words were directed towards me and by a family member. It's time for the holidays.
It's that time of year.
Yeah. And I had a whole day where I just couldn't stop replaying it despite my practice, despite my training. I was like, you're going to make me, go crazy, brain. If you don't just.
Yes.
So do you have any, and the next day I was able to get a handle on it, but it was, do you have any?
Well, it only lasted one day. That's good. So the question you didn't hear was basically family member. It is the holidays. Pretty, verbally some words that hurt you, and you just couldn't let it go for a whole day. And the next day it was better. So you carried it around for about 24 hours, and here we are looking at it again. So you're still carrying it, which is understandable. So. Have you ever said hurtful words to somebody? When you did that, how were you feeling?
Pretty bad.
Pretty bad. And that's what led to you saying the hurtful words, right? I've been there a lot, okay? So when I felt bad or angry or depressed or whatever it was, I said lots of things that hurt lots of people, right? So the challenge is to begin to understand that the words that were said to you have nothing to do with you. It has to do with them. This is where that crazy Buddhist word of compassion comes in, right? Having compassion for their suffering, for their pain, for whatever they're carrying around that has haunted them and tortured them and traumatized them, and whatever life experiences they've had that led them to be in this moment where they are in so much, whatever, to say these things to you, right? It's about them. The challenge is to not spin it around and start to think it's about you or believe it.
Is that true even if in their mind it is because of you, like you're the cause of it?
It doesn't matter. Yeah, it is true. Yes, to answer your question directly, yes. Regardless, right? They're suffering. I just shift to that immediately. We will constantly live our lives every day. It's often hardest when it's, family, loved ones, things like that, because it hurts the most, right? But their suffering is not about you. And yes, they can say, well, it's your, it could get spun around in so many different crazy ways. I've never said harmful words to someone when I was perfectly happy and peaceful. So try not to make it about you. Try not to buy into that whole story.
Because it's not useful in any way.
Clearly. Yeah, it's not useful at all. Yeah. It's tough, but being the end of the year, we have a whole now about 4 or 5 weeks left to practice with this stuff. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Compassion for others. Yeah, I think I see a hand there. Oh, there you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Last week I was listening to Hank Williams, and this is a perfect example where we seem to like to contemplate suffering, and a lot of people fit into that category. That's one reason why. That's all he talks about.
Mm-hmm. We're so used to it, right? Yeah, I often say that for whatever reason, we don't sit around all day thinking about all the wonderful, great, happy things in our lives, I mean, for everything that's said to us that's harmful, you know how many kind, wonderful things that probably happened in your life from that moment until now? A lot. So many little things have happened between the amount of time that, takes kind of going from that moment to this moment. And yet for some reason we pick out that one thing that hurt us. And we fixate on it over and over and over. And we play the story, and every time we tell the story, maybe it gets worse. Right? In your head, it just gets worse, possibly. And if it gets better, great. But then you start to question it and analyze them and analyze you, and it just gets worse. As opposed to thinking about, okay, well, that happened. They said this. But look at all these wonderful things that have happened in my life in the last 24 hours. I had food to eat, clothes to wear, maybe a roof over my head, a bunch of other people that didn't say mean things to me. How many of you walked in today and said, wow, I'm so happy all these people didn't say mean things to me. There's you've probably encountered 1,000 people in your last 48 hours, whether you knew them or not. And yet the one person that said something mean and nasty to you, we focus on that, not the 999 other people who are so nice to you. So the other way I like to look at it as, it's their mess, not mine. I got my own mess. I don't need to carry theirs also. Yeah. Thanks. Other thoughts, questions? Yeah.
what are some of the biggest things you've noticed? You think back to when you started your practice and where you are today as far as the way you perceive yourself, in relationships, the way you handle situations, all those things.
Oh, man. We only got 5 minutes left, so that's a tough one to wrap up. You know, I find humor in everything now. You know, I'll just rattle off, I guess, a few things that popped into my mind. You know, my first Buddhist book I read 24 years ago when I was a college kid. You know, Intro to Zen Buddhism by D.T. Suzuki. And then 16 years ago, it became an everyday part of my life. And then for 11 months, spent a year in a monastery in Taiwan, living kind of Zen monk life. And so to sum up in now probably 3.5 minutes, the most profound things that have happened to me, I don't get angry at anything or anyone. I don't get angry at myself. I don't judge myself. I appreciate everything. Even the things that we would call good or bad, which is all our own opinion anyways, but things that I would typically call good or bad, I've learned to appreciate all of them because I'm alive to experience them. You know, I just don't, you know, for the first, which is really quite miraculous, for the first probably 25 years of my life, it's amazing that I was never wrong once for 25 years. That was hard to do. To be so perfect for 25 years was torture. And I'm wrong a lot now. I wasn't before. So to just enjoy that, you know, the times you think you're right, the times you think you're wrong, to make adjustments, you know, in the way you respond to people and places and things. You know, one thing I always say is I don't expect anything from anyone ever. And I used to expect everything from everyone always. And now I don't. You know, I don't care if phones ring. I don't care if people cough. I don't care if people move. Like, we are our own little human beings having our own experience mixed in with, you know, a whole other mess of sentient beings. And I stopped killing snails. I just stopped thinking I was better than everybody or that I was most important. And like I said, everything I just rattled off, my parents taught me. I didn't listen to them. And years later, I opened up a bunch of Buddhist books and started going to Buddhist places. And that's where I learned all that. Right? Or at least where I decided to integrate it into my life. But it's a constant practice. It's not a quick fix solution. It's not a 6-week course, you know, for everybody who's maybe not heard that before. It is a lifelong journey and practice. You know, I do believe in the bardo. And when the time comes that I'm there, that's why I work so diligently now. Because if you've done it proper, they say in the bardo, you can actually determine where you end up. So I'm a big fan of the bardo. I just don't speak on it. Yeah. So those are a few things that come to mind. So the church bells are ringing. I'm going to close on that. We'll join palms. And the benefit of this practice is shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to those who need it most.